Something is seriously wrong with the Minnesota Vikings, as Thursday night's blowout loss was horrifying to watch and brought many casualties to make matters worse, as we dive into where everything went sideways in a game that got away from the Vikings early and kept getting uglier. We're going to break down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you're not a part of the 13% of viewers who are already subscribed to the channel and you want to stay up to date on all things Vikings, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of the episodes as they drop. With that, let's hop right into the first topic of the day, which is a Thursday night football blowout. So the Minnesota Vikings had a really tough time against the Los Angeles Chargers tonight, with a final score of 37-10. Looking there at the box score, Minnesota just could not generate anything really of note on offense and could not stop anything on defense, as the Chargers just walked all over us, scoring 14 points in the second and the fourth quarter. Just right from the jump, it was really tough for Minnesota, where that pick six by Isaiah Rodgers was unfortunately called back because the ball just was not hitting the ground. That's twice in a row now the Vikings have gotten screwed over on catches that were reviewed and just deemed incomplete passes, and due to losing control to the ground. If that wasn't a catch and TJ Hawkinson's wasn't a catch, what the hell is a catch anymore, guys? I mean, come on. Like, this is twice now that Minnesota has lit it, 3 times now in 2 weeks, actually, that Minnesota has had a touchdown taken off of the board because of a bunch of bullshit. I'm just going to say it right straight up like that, because you had the holding penalty against that first touchdown that was called back against Minnesota last week against the Eagles. That was a bunch of BS. Then you had the TJ Hawkinson catch that was ruled not a catch after they reviewed it and called it a touchdown. That was also BS. Then you have this Isaiah Rodgers one, where I can't help but think if he wasn't, there's something that just nags at me in my mind that he had his mind on the pick six because of the field position, where if he had caught the ball and just tried to just land on the ground on his back, maybe he comes away with that pick and we just end up with great field position rather than a pick six. That is why they kind of teach you when you're playing, play for the ball rather than the score or thinking ahead of it, where you, even as your receiver, where you plan on your run after the catch before you even catch the ball and it leads to an incompletion. Maybe that was a bit of the case here that led to it, because when you look at how he caught it, it was a bit avoidable, where he could have avoided the ground if he had just kind of rolled over and just was not thinking about the pick six. But maybe that was a thing that was on his mind. You saw the defensive coaches talking with him after it was overturned, where he was very frustrated. They're trying to pick him up. But that was one of those things where as soon as I saw that happen, immediate flashbacks to the Rams playoff game where we had that pick six taken off the board, and lo and behold, the Rams just go on an absolute tear down the field, score a long drive touchdown, completely takes all of our momentum out of our wings, and we have to respond when we're already decimated after time of possession. That was exactly what happened here, and as soon as that touchdown got called back, immediately I just went to, all right, here comes a touchdown drive by the Chargers. Doesn't matter where they're at on the field, even if they just go on a 90-yard touchdown drive here, that's exactly what they're going to do. And that's exactly what they did. And from then on, after that pick six was called back, it was just a rough night for the defense. They could not stop anything. Kimani Vidal absolutely tore through us. That is a third string running back that absolutely torched this Vikings defense. This Vikings defense that's supposed to be one of the best in the league, the past 2 weeks have looked absolutely terrible against some of the best offenses in the league. So, I mean, we can't just be playing against these shitty teams and be saying that, oh, we're the best defense in the league. We're the best defense in the league. Well, you got to play the great offenses too. You got to beat the good offenses, and that is not happening for Minnesota. We are getting absolutely torched by these great offenses. And speaking of offense, there was no offense to be found for Minnesota tonight. Carson Wentz going 15 of 27, 144 yards, 1 touchdown to Jordan Addison, which kind of gave us a little bit of false hope there at the end. And then that ugly interception that was just abysmal to watch. He took 5 sacks for 27 yards of loss, had a passer rating of 67. And Max Brosmer, who I swear to God, I was texting people saying, put Max Brosmer in by the time that the third quarter rolled around, because Carson Wentz was clearly not 100% healthy in this game. Right from jump, I didn't even think Carson Wentz should have been playing in this game. Even when he was coming out in that harness, you knew he wasn't 100% ready, and that Minnesota was almost setting him up for failure on a short week. However, I do understand with Kevin O'Connell going with the veteran choice, even if he wasn't the healthier choice, over Max Brosmer in a big Thursday night game against a really good defense that has a really good offense on the other side of the ball, and KOC wanted to avoid that. However, when you look at the stats, Max Brosmer had a better passer rating. Yeah, he only threw for 13 yards, but he had the longest passing completion of the game as well. and he just was able to get some things going at least. Xavier Scott as well, coming in at the end of the game and having the longest rush of the game and having most rushing yards off. I mean, you hate to see this, guys. I mean, Aaron Jones in his first game back, he had 15 yards on the run, or on the ground, sorry. And then even in the passing game too, he was a little bit more involved there as well, where he had 15 yards, but still only 30 total yards. Justin Jefferson, 11 targets, 7 catches, only 74 yards. This was ugly. This is one of the most ugly Minnesota Vikings games that I have ever seen played by this team. I mean, this was horrible. It was like watching the Rams game from last year. It was like watching the Lions game at the end of the regular season the year before that. It was like watching when the Buffalo Bills absolutely destroyed us in a 1:00 game when Josh Allen hurdled over us in that highlight reel play. And there's a lot of bad Vikings games that are flooding through my mind right now. And this is going to be another one in a long list of them. It sucked to see this happen because Minnesota came into this game needing a win on a short week where they needed to just wash away that Philly game. But there is a bright side of this. At least they can go into a somewhat mini bye week with a longer break. But in the end, this was a really, really bad game by the Vikings. I mean, you look at their Adam Thielen, no targets, no catches for 0 yards. Jalen Naylor had a target. He was wide open on one pass that Carson Wentz just didn't even look towards him. Then you have Jordan Mason there. He didn't really get involved. Ben Urasek had a catch for 5 yards. Cool. That sounds all right. TJ Hawkinson, 26 yards. That's not a great start to National Tight End Week, especially when Minnesota needs their tight end to really get going. Jordan Addison, 26 yards and a touchdown that made fantasy owners happy. Didn't make Vikings fans really happy because of when it happened. Justin Jefferson, he was looking very, very pissed off on the sideline with how this Vikings team was playing. And yes, everyone is going to be talking about Sam Darnold. You let Sam Darnold go. You let Sam Darnold go. But the reality is here, folks, if we had let Sam Darnold go, we would have still been having the same offensive line problems that led to him getting exposed last year and led to our team getting exposed because we wouldn't have had the money to get those guys. We wouldn't have been able to re-sign Byron Murphy. We wouldn't have been able to re-sign Harrison Smith to a restructured deal. We wouldn't have been able to sign Isaiah Rodgers in free agency. We wouldn't have been able to get Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. Maybe we would have been able to get a couple of those guys, but we wouldn't have been able to have them on this team the way that we have it now. Yes, in hindsight, with the offensive line health issues that we had, maybe we could have kept Garrett Bradbury around and not gone with Ryan Kelly with all the concussions he's had. Maybe avoid the guy with a lot of conkies. And then you got Will Fries. He's finally playing back-to-back games, so that is awesome for Minnesota. Brian O'Neill also did not play in this game. And then that is also the big thing of this game was the injuries. Christian Darrisaw, he left the game with a knee injury. Josh Oliver, he left the game with a foot injury. Jeff Okudah, he left the game with a concussion. Jonathan Grenard, he got rolled up on his ankle, it looked like, and he came out of the game as well. So this was a Vikings team that was already coming into it decimated, where Brian O'Neill wasn't playing, Andrew Van Ginkel wasn't playing. So many pieces of this team were not playing, and we got exposed. It was a repeat of the Thursday Night Football game in the same stadium, but against the LA Rams last year. Hopefully, Darrisaw didn't suffer a season-ending injury like it did last year, but it seems like Minnesota is cursed at SoFi Stadium. Just back-to-back games on Thursday Night Football. We know that Minnesota on the road at Thursday Night Football, they showed that graphic how it gave Vikings some false hope where they're 0-6 on the road on Thursday Night Football. Carson Wentz is 7-0 on Thursday Night Football. Here's the day where that streak finally breaks or one of them stays going, and the shittier one ended up keep going. And that is not what we want to see with Minnesota. We want to see this team get more wins. But this was something that I had slightly anticipated when the injuries were starting to mount up early. I said it on this show as well. I said it to some people in my personal life as well, is that with this Vikings team, we have so many injuries and so many growing pains we have to go through. But I would much rather go through it earlier in the season rather than later in the season if we can just keep our head above water at 500 or just below or just above and just make sure that we can get the right momentum at the right time when this team is healthy, where you can go into next season with a lot of momentum, or into the postseason, sorry, with a lot of momentum. I know right now you guys are probably thinking I'm crazy thinking postseason, but you got to think somewhat positive. We know this team is capable of making it to the postseason. We know this roster is good enough to get us there. It's just a matter of being healthy and the guys that need to just kind of step up and go through those growing pains, JJ McCarthy being the biggest one, obviously. But Minnesota has to just get it together. That's the biggest thing here. We have a big problem here. Play calling was a huge factor in this game as well. Didn't even talk about that, where Kevin O'Connell on the first third and short of the game just terrible, terrible play calling overall. And this is something that Minnesota absolutely needs to fix heading into a huge game against the Detroit Lions, where if this game was any indication, Minnesota fans, you better be getting ready for a blowout against the Lions, because they are going to be pissed off. They are going to be at home. They are going to be hungry after the ass whooping that they just laid on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're just going to be the next line of victims in that category. But if JJ McCarthy is ready to go, maybe he comes back and is just absolutely lights out and just is what everything we wanted him to be. Maybe it's going to take some time getting there. We know that we're probably going to lose this next game. It's going to be rough. This stretch that we have coming up, it's going to be rough for Minnesota fans. But if we can get through just the first half of the season, get through it, be above 500 after that Ravens game, if we can get back to 500 or be just above it, I feel a little bit better about where we'll be at, especially heading into the second half of the season, where Andrew Van Ginkel will be back. Aaron Jones will be healthier. Hopefully the Darisaw injury isn't too bad. Hopefully Josh Oliver is good to go. Jeff Okudah hopefully isn't too banged up. Same with Jonathan Grenard. All those updates are going to be coming out probably tomorrow. KOC dropped a press conference tonight, as well as Carson Wentz. At the time of recording this, we did not catch those press conferences. This is just a raw post-game reaction. That's why I'm so angry about it, just because this was a game that I hoped Minnesota was going to win, because they needed to win it. But again, this was a game that Minnesota fans, after watching it for many years, we kind of knew what was coming with this one, and we knew that Carson Wentz going into this game, not 100% healthy. I do kind of put some blame on Kevin O'Connell there, where you knew Carson Wentz wasn't 100%. Give him a lot of credit for fighting through that. He took an ass whooping the night, and he kept getting up, and he was in a lot of pain, and you could see it. But in the end, I think that Max Brosmer might have played a better game against this Chargers defense, where, yeah, they were killing us on every side of the ball, but at least you could have put a healthier quarterback in there where it wouldn't have compromised your team too much, where if you were going to lose the game anyways, maybe you could have put Brosmer in a little bit earlier to give you a better shot when it was a 2-possession game. I don't know. I'm not the head coach, but let us know what you guys thought on the game as well down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss the episodes tomorrow when they drop, as well as later on through the season. There's going to be lots to dive into for all the stuff from the fallout of this game in our episodes tomorrow, so you won't want to miss that, so stay tuned for all that. But for now, I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.